gotta slap the shit out of you Canadians. Wake up. What are we doing here?
The Liberal government is weaponizing the CRA against their opponents.
What Canadians need to know about this situation is that this is a complete slap in the face of democracy.
Canada doesn't belong to politicians. It belongs to the people.
Canadian democracy is fracturing and Carney's Liberals are putting on the pressure.
Dozens and dozens of nation-destroying scandals. The NDP Liberal government is still standing and refuses to step down. That, my friends, is called a dictatorship.
Canada isn't a democracy anymore, it's a kleptocracy, where corruption is the defining characteristic.
Is democracy in Canada slowly fading? Or are people just not paying attention? Because something feels different. More people are speaking up. But fewer people feel heard. More decisions are being made, but less transparency is being shown. And the biggest question is, who is really in control? Because Canada was built on a simple idea, that the government works for the people, not the other way around. But lately, it feels like that line is starting to blur. When citizens raise concerns, they're told to stay quiet. When questions are asked, answers feel incomplete. And when accountability is expected, it feels delayed or missing. That's not how a strong democracy is supposed to work. Real democracy means transparency, accountability, and leaders who answer to the people who elected them. So what's really happening here? Is this just frustration, or are we seeing the early signs of something deeper? In this video, we're going to break it down. What democracy actually means, what people are experiencing right now, and why this conversation matters more than ever. If you believe citizens should always have a voice, make sure you watch till the end and subscribe for more real discussions like this.
I gotta slap the shit out of you Canadians. Wake up. What are we doing here? The MPs that are crossing the floor, this is so against the spirit of democracy. This is against everything that the Liberal government says they stand for. They were not elected on a majority mandate, and they are cutting backroom deals with MPs to betray their constituents. The people that voted for them to represent their party's values that they represented, the Conservative or NDP or whatever party's values, and to backstab them without a by-election, to go cross over literally to the other party that you were talking all of this shit to. And in a second, all that gets erased and a backstab to your own constituents to go join a party that was not elected on a majority mandate. And now it looks like they're going to get that majority mandate. What are we doing? Is 10 years of a report card of failures not enough?
The country's going to be able to survive another 4-year round of liberal, utopian, globalist, environmentalist, net zero catastrophe. And so don't be thinking that Carney's a new guy. And don't be thinking that his stellar resume indicates that he's going to produce some kind of economic revival in Canada. Because all the evidence points to the fact that he's going to continue to pursue the net zero delusions that he's already established as the center of his entire edifice of thought. And if you don't believe me, and maybe you don't want to or can't, or you doubt me, read Values yourself. And then you'll see. Read the first 3 chapters and the last 3 chapters, because the middle of it's just boilerplate. It's only there to make the book thick instead of pamphlet length. And so an hour of reading and you'll figure out who Carney is. Now, if you believe that carbon dioxide output on the part of Canada constitutes an existential threat of the sort that requires us to become poverty-stricken over the next 40 years, well, we virtue signal about how the planet could be saved while doing absolutely nothing about actually addressing any true environmental problems, then Carney's your guy.
Canada doesn't belong to politicians. It belongs to the people. But somewhere along the way, our government started acting like they own the country instead of working for the citizens who built it. They spend our money, they ignore our voices, they make decisions we never voted for. And when Canadians speak up, they tell us to sit down and be quiet. No, that's not how a free country works. A government that forgets who it works for must be reminded. Not with violence, not with chaos, but with millions of citizens standing together peacefully, lawfully, and refusing to back down. Because freedom doesn't disappear all at once. It disappears when people stop defending it. This country was built by strong people who believed in liberty, responsibility, and the rule of law. Now it's our turn. If we want a better system, if we want real accountability, if we want corruption rooted out of government, then Canadians have to stand up together and say one simple thing. You work for us, not the other way around. And until this country is governed with honesty, transparency, and respect for the people, we will not stop demanding it. Because Canada isn't theirs. Canada is ours.
Did you hear Rebel News is being audited? Yeah, the Liberal government is weaponizing the CRA against their opponents now. That's what's happening in Canada. Thanks, Liberals. And if you're a Liberal, you should be afraid of this too. Because if the Conservatives ever get in and use these powers, you're in trouble as well. And I thought Russia was bad. Oh my Jesus. Oh my God. I can't believe what's happening here in Canada now. Our votes don't even matter with all these floor crossings. Yeah, there's no democracy in Canada. It's dead. Democracy is dead. I hope you people in these ridings, I hope you don't hand him a full majority. I hope.
I'm just curious, this question is going out to the Liberals. When you guys voted Trudeau in, 11 years ago now? And he said he was going to run the deficit up just a little bit, but don't worry, it would pay for itself. How's that working out for you? And then when you guys elected Carney, after 10 years of Trudeau disaster, and you put Carney in power, and he said, don't worry about it, I'm a master negotiator. I've got this fucking covered. No problem, it's in the bag. He's been in there for just about 9 months now. We still haven't achieved anything with the U.S. government. We've set no deals up with other countries. So what do you think about that one? How's that going for you? And this new budget that he's putting out that's putting us into oblivion? What do you think of that? You know, I'm pretty sure all Liberals, their parents met at family reunions, and their children, they eat paint chips.
Canadian democracy is fracturing and Carney's Liberals are putting on the pressure. And it's not just the 4 floor crossings, but the numerous legislative attempts to centralize control in the government. Bill C-5 is the most notable example because it let cabinet ministers designate infrastructure projects for the national interest with barely any oversight. At the end of the day, this bill is only going to be used to benefit corporations and oil companies, especially with the Keystone XL pipeline. Bill C-2, which is being reintroduced, would allow the government to unilaterally cancel or suspend immigration documents based on an arbitrary public interest without a proper review process. While the additional powers to the police are being dismantled, this does not address the fundamental issue with this bill, which is giving the government draconian powers. These bills and many more are amongst this worrying trend of democratic backsliding that we're seeing with Carney's government that isn't unprecedented, but definitely indicative of how Carney wants to lead. While a more technocratic government is theoretically more efficient, it pushes the average Canadian out of Ottawa and creates a more alienated government. And with how much Carney is willing to benefit corporations over the average person, it doesn't seem like this approach benefits any of us. Canadian democracy has always been elite-centric, but in a Canada where inequality is rising and affecting us in the now, this approach will only impoverish more and more people.
Hey Canada, it's Leah Catherine here. You know, in spite of dozens and dozens of nation-destroying scandals, the NDP Liberal government is still standing and refuses to step down. That, my friends, is called a dictatorship, and that's where Canada is heading. But it's time to wake up. Again, this is a spiritual battle that's being played out in the physical, and there are massive consequences for you and me and every Canadian if we don't win this battle. So it's time to wake up. It's time to pray. It's time to praise. It's time to come back to God. That is the only way. With God, things are possible, even though to man it's impossible. So, new song coming out on Friday is called Wake Up Canada. We invite you to sing with us, repent with us, praise with us, pray with us. Please like and subscribe so you won't miss it. And please share this with all your friends. Anybody who you think might care about Canada. We want to save Canada. We want to reach everybody. God bless you.
Canada isn't a democracy anymore, it's a kleptocracy, where corruption is the defining characteristic of governance. Our leaders enrich themselves while undermining national security, mismanage crises, and betray public trust, all at the expense of everyday Canadians. As Canadians face skyrocketing living costs, a housing crisis, and a crumbling healthcare system, MPs are patting themselves on the back while simultaneously patting their pockets. Over half the country feels financially paralyzed, and states of emergency are being declared over food insecurity, with 1 in 3 Kingston residents struggling to afford to eat. Yet it gets worse. Some MPs have ties to international crime, sharing addresses with drug smugglers, funneling tax dollars into personal ventures, and engaging in fraud and embezzlement. Meanwhile, an untold number of MPs are working with hostile foreign nations, most notably China. This isn't governance, it's organized crime wrapped in parliamentary robes. Political power in Canada has become a tool for looting citizens and exploiting resources for personal gain. They've turned Parliament Hill into a command center for corruption, and if left unchecked, Canadians may soon see it as nothing more than a symbol of their exploitation. This is not public service, it's the looting of a nation in plain sight.
So you're confirming that accounts have been frozen, both personal and corporate, but you're not releasing the information. And the actual follow-up is, I'm just wondering whether the bank accounts will be targeted of individuals who donated to the Give, Send, Go and the GoFundMe campaigns. Are they considered designated people under the Emergencies Act, meaning that their credit cards could be cut and financial services are targeting them as well?
Okay, so the names of both individuals and entities, as well as crypto wallets, have been shared by the RCMP with financial institutions, and accounts have been frozen, and more accounts will be frozen. Crowdfunding platforms and payment service providers have started the registration process with FinTrack. In terms of the specifics on whose accounts are being frozen, you now have the regulations. The financial service providers have those regulations as well, and they, working with law enforcement, will be making the operational decisions.
I'm sure many of you have heard by now that we've had 2 Conservative MPs defect to the Liberals. First it was Chris D'Entremont, and then it was Michael Mott. And what Canadians need to know about this situation is that this is a complete slap in the face of democracy, and this has everything to do with Carney and the Liberals trying to silently get a majority in the most dirty way possible. Let me put things into perspective here. 10 days before Michael Mott decided to join the Liberals, he was criticizing them in Parliament, criticizing them for the cost of living and for the rise of inflation.
From Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians through higher prices and through food inflation. Monthly visits to food banks have doubled since 2019.
Chris D'Entremont, he was criticizing the Liberals as well, in Parliament and during his election campaign.
I want to speak in support of the Conservative motion because Canadians are hurting. Families are being forced to cut deeply into their grocery budgets just to get by. And frankly, that makes me a little bit angry and a little bit sad.
And now they've decided to go to the Liberals, saying that they are more aligned with them, that they have a better vision for Canada than what Pierre and the Conservatives have. These 2 men have been bribed or blackmailed or whatever into joining the Liberals. They didn't join out of good faith. They didn't join because the Liberals are actually doing good things. They joined because they are fucking rotten and corrupted. Michael Mott went to the Conservative Christmas party dinner the night before he decided to defect to the Liberals. That means he went to that Christmas party dinner knowing that he was not going to be a Conservative MP the next day. And what happens the next day? He decides to call it quits. He joins the Liberals, and then he attends their Christmas party the same day. I don't know if this guy is a big fan of Christmas parties and that's why he did this, but the optics look really fucked up. I'll tell you why this is all happening. It's because Pierre Poilievre has his leadership review next month, and this is when all Conservative MPs vote on if they want to keep Pierre Poilievre as a leader of the Conservative Party. Now, Carney and Liberals are pretty much afraid of Pierre, right? Carney doesn't even debate Pierre half the time in Parliament. There's actually clips of Carney leaving Parliament mid-session out the back door just so he doesn't have to debate Pierre. Now, what the Carney Liberals are doing is a very dirty game of politics. They're luring Conservative MPs to their party so they can say to the rest of Canada, hey look, Pierre Poilievre, he can't handle his own party. People are leaving. That must mean he sucks. That means his leadership sucks. That's what they're trying to do. And it's a very, very dirty game. The people that voted for Michael Mott and Chris D'Entremont voted for them based on the fact that they were Conservative MPs running for the Conservative Party. And now months later, they switched sides to the Liberals with no repercussions, no by-election, nothing. This is a slap in the face of democracy. This just proves that our vote has no fucking meaning, and that's all an illusion of choice. How does that make any sense? If one day the guy I voted for decides to switch to the other party, how can I ever have faith and confidence in my government? This is the part where Canadians need to wake up. We're not living in a democracy anymore, folks.
Democracy is dead. Mark Carney became Prime Minister without anyone voting for him, so he may as well get his majority government the same way. The Liberals will rule the Supreme Court and the Senate for years to come.
There is a trend in Canadian politics that I'm terrified of, and one that threatens to take your power away. Over the past few years, the prime ministers and premiers have concentrated more and more power within themselves that threatens the whole government being fully executively controlled. While executive federalism is not a new concept in Canada, it's definitely been more solidified over the years. The unconstitutional use of the Emergencies Act by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is the most notable example of this trend, but it has continued on with Prime Minister Mark Carney and other notable premiers all across this country. Mark Carney, as we've talked about before, has passed numerous bills to centralize more control within the executive and is taking a more technocratic approach to running Canada. Theoretically, it's more efficient, but it takes a lot of decision-making out of the Canadian public's hands and into a chosen few. While the premiers have also been consolidating more provincial powers into themselves. The rampant use of the notwithstanding clause by premiers like Legault and Smith to pursue their political agendas have decimated political oversight, contestation, and debate. While economic projects, fiscal transfers, and intergovernmental negotiations between the federal and provincial governments have been mainly negotiated between the premiers and prime ministers with minimal legislative input. And premiers like David Eby and Daniel Smith have been changing the political structure of their provinces to centralize more control within the provincial governments, like Daniel Smith's Alberta Sovereignty with the United Canada Act and Eby's Bill 15. I'll talk more about this in detail soon, but we have to be aware of this growing national trend because we are effectively losing our influence in government every single day. We need full democratic reform, and we need it today.
Dark day for Canada, eh, guys? Mark Carney gets his majority government through backdoor deals. There should be, whoever does come into power, whenever this regime of dictatorship stops, needs to fix our parliamentary, because anybody who crosses the floor, it should trigger a by-election, and that person should have to run in the new position that they've crossed the floor to see if they can win that riding, not win that riding as a different party and then switch. I don't care which party it is. No one should be crossing the floor. It's not proper, period. Because that's not who the people voted for at that point. So much shit, excuse my language, has happened in the last few weeks in Canada. Majority government to the Liberals, which means any bill that they want, they're going to put through. Which means that you might about buckle up, guys. If you thought that what was happening in the UK was never going to be something that Canada was going to go through, you were wrong. And I hate to tell you that. Bill C9 was passed, and all these other bills that the Conservatives have been trying to fight in committee and to get things, fixed terms in them and removing things to make it a better law. Doesn't matter because they shut down debate on Bill C9 and put it through anyway. With the help of the Bloc Québécois, which, by the way, shouldn't even have a fucking federal party. Because all they care about is Quebec. They don't care about the Canadians. And then you hear the CBC corruption. Listening to the testimony of the person who was working there and all the things that they were doing to not be partisan. Also, another CBC employee has come out and started talking about the toxic environment. Also talked about Cochrane and Barton being very disgusting people. They're not about Canada and they don't care about anything. And we know that because Rosemary Barton, whatever the hell her name is, was heard on the mic that they forgot to turn off, that this was all fake anyway. And then the guy who killed 16 teenagers by hitting their bus, the Humboldt tragedy. CBC runs a story trying to make the guy who ran through a stop sign and killed those 16 kids, they ran a story about how he was the victim, how he seems to be the victim, how he talks about, oh, I'm scared because, I run my hand through my child's hair not knowing if I'll be able to see him, blah, 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 because he's supposed to be gone. He's supposed to be deported. Yes, there's due process. He's doing all these appeals, and he's losing all of them, but he's still here. He's concerned about not being there for his kid, but no concern about the 16 families that he has no concern about anything but about himself. And apparently he was supposed to do a whole bunch of stuff and hasn't done a single thing. And CBC is running it as if he's the victim. We are a Commonwealth country, and if you thought that UK stuff was bad, prepare yourself and buckle up, because it's bad. It's coming here. When Mark Carney left England, this was already starting. He went there, he helped out, and you can say whatever you want, and I can wear a tin hat and whatever the hell you want. I sometimes wish that I wasn't awake, because being awake is fucking horrible sometimes when you really see the things that are happening in this world. We are now living under a dictatorship where it doesn't matter what we say as the people. It doesn't matter what's said in the House of Commons, because they're going to pass whatever bill they fucking want. Excuse my language. I have kids who are youths. They don't even have a chance for a fucking proper future. I can't stop swearing. I do apologize for the swearing. I'm just frustrated. I don't think Canadians see this. I don't think a lot of Canadians are ready for what's about to happen. They're going to start arresting people with opinions and putting them in jail, but they don't have room to put the pedophiles and violent criminals in jail. It's a dark day for Canada. And it's unfortunate because I don't see it getting any better anytime soon. The only thing that I think that's going to come out of this is some people who have never felt the way majority of us have felt of this government will start to feel the pinch. I feel for the youth in this country. They'll never have the opportunity that we did. There are only certain hills that I'll die on. And one of them is freedom of speech. And one of them is fighting for my kid to have a good future, like I did, a chance to have that future. And those are the hills that I'll die on. Elbows up though, right?
So after everything we've talked about, let's come back to the core idea. Who does Canada really belong to? Because at its foundation, Canada was built on the belief that power comes from the people, not from politicians, not from institutions, but from citizens. And when that balance starts to shift, people notice, maybe not all at once, but slowly. It shows up in frustration, in distrust, in the feeling that voices aren't being heard the way they used to be. But here's the truth. Democracy doesn't disappear overnight. It weakens when people stop engaging, when questions stop being asked, when accountability is no longer expected. And that's why conversations like this matter. Not to create division, but to create awareness. Because a strong country isn't built on silence. It's built on people who ask questions, stay informed, and hold leadership accountable. Now I want to hear from you. Do you feel like your voice is being heard? Do you believe the system is working the way it should? Or do you think something needs to change? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's have a real conversation. And if you believe Canada belongs to its citizens, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more honest discussions like this, because the more people speak up, the stronger democracy becomes. Stay aware, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next video.